The quarry had been abandoned for decades, but it never stopped sounding alive. Even now, as the wind dragged across its fractured walls, the stones seemed to breathe, slow and deep, like something buried beneath the rock still dreaming. The goat climbed the first ledge with the quiet precision of something that had done this 1,000 times. His hooves struck stone that rang faintly, a thin metallic tone that lingered too long after each step. The sound did not fade. It followed him upward, echoing back a heartbeat late. The slopes of the quarry were jagged, veined with rust and salt. Pools of old rainwater glimmered in the shadows, holding still reflections of nothing that existed above them. Broken machines lay half buried at the base, engines without purpose, steel arms reaching upward, like skeletons waiting for work that would never return. The goat paused at the second ridge. The air here was different, heavy, thick, tasting faintly of dust and iron. He turned his head. The wind had stopped. The silence pressed close. Then, softly from below, the echo. It wasn't the sound of his last step. It was slower, lower, as if something deeper inside the rock had taken a moment to remember, then repeated the sound back with its own weight. He climbed higher. The light shifted as he rose, gray sliding toward gold. The horizon burned faintly with the first color of dusk, painting the edges of the broken stone in weak fire. Shadows deepened, stretching like dark fingers across the ledges. At the third ridge, he stopped again. The air was colder here, sharper. He could see the whole valley now, the ruins of the village below, the thin line of road that ended at the base of the quarry, the hollow where once a pit had swallowed everything. He looked down. The sound came again. This time it was louder, not an echo anymore, but a response. A deep vibration rolled through the walls, dust spilling from cracks in the rock. Small stones slid loose and clattered down the slopes, their noise swallowed by something deeper that didn't belong to air or surface. The goat's ears turned forward, his nostrils flared. He waited. No movement. Only that low tremor, steady, deliberate, like a heartbeat hidden in the bones of the earth. He climbed again. The path narrowed as he reached the upper ridge, the stone wet with the slow seep of underground water. The walls here were marked, not carved by tools, but by time itself. Faint grooves traced down the surface like veins, and in their depths, something shimmered, a dull metallic gleam that flickered with each breath of dying light. He pressed one hoof against the stone. The echo came again, closer now, sharper. It was not sound anymore. It was pressure, a pulse against the air. The goat froze. The light between the grooves brightened, faintly at first, then stronger, running upward like molten threads. The whole wall seemed to inhale, its surface flexing almost imperceptibly. He stepped back. The glow rose higher, spreading across the rock face, filling each crack and scar until the quarry's wall shone like a colossal vein of dull gold. The air trembled. The echo came again, delayed, distorted, too heavy to belong to stone. It was as though the quarry was trying to remember how to speak. The goat turned his head toward the valley. The village below was dark, but from this height, he could see something new. Faint flickers of light moving through the streets, following no wind, no flame, only rhythm. He looked back at the wall. The shimmer in the rock was fading now, sinking back into the stone as if embarrassed by its own voice. The air cooled. The sound stopped. And then, from deep below the quarry, one last echo came. Slow, drawn out, so low that it was felt more than heard. It wasn't repeating him anymore. It was answering. The goat stood still on the ledge, the final rays of sunset fading across his back. The silence that followed was vast and full, the kind that held meaning even when nothing moved. When he finally climbed again, the rock beneath him hummed softly, no longer in echo, but in recognition. At the top of the quarry, the air felt thin, not from height, but from absence. The world above was stripped bare, as if the wind had taken everything that once lived here and left only the shape of its passing. The goat stood at the edge, staring across the open flatland, where the quarry ended in a jagged lip of stone. Beyond that, The horizon bled gray into gray. A small structure stood there, half buried in gravel and time. It was the old watchtower. Its frame leaned slightly, one side collapsed inward. The wooden beams were black with rain and sun, streaked by decades of silence. A metal staircase clung to its side, twisted and incomplete, spiraling upward toward a platform that was no longer whole. The goat approached. His hooves made dull clicks on the stone, but even before the sound faded, the echo returned. Late, low, wrong. It came from below the ground this time, not the walls. The earth hummed beneath him, as though the sound had taken a longer route home. He stopped at the base of the tower. The ground here was cracked, the seams wide enough to swallow light. When he peered down, he saw nothing. No reflection, no glow. Only depth. Then came the echo again. It rose from the crack like a slow breath, delayed, distorted, the same rhythm as his steps, but dragged through time, stretched too far to belong to him anymore. The goat tilted his head. His ears flicked once. He took another step forward. The tower creaked in answer. Its frame trembled, wood settling, metal sighing. But beneath that, there was another sound, softer, heavier. It came from deep inside the stone beneath the structure. The goat circled the base. The ground here sloped slightly downward, and near the back of the tower, the earth had fallen away, revealing a cavity beneath the foundation, a hollow, where the quarry's lowest veins met the bedrock. The air that came from it was warm. It smelled of dust and water and metal, and something else, something old enough to be beyond naming. He stepped closer. Inside, the hollow glowed faintly, not gold this time, but blue, pale and cold. The light pulsed once, then twice, in slow, steady rhythm. It was the same rhythm as before, the same delay, the same lagging heartbeat that chased his every sound. The goat leaned forward. The glow strengthened, and the air trembled around him. The faint sound returned. Not quite a hum, not quite a voice, but both. The vibration crawled up his legs, through the stone, through the tower's supports. The wood above began to creak again, long, drawn, aching. The whole structure swayed as though remembering the wind it no longer felt. The goat stepped back, his hooves striking rock. The sound echoed downward into the hollow, and came back wrong again, half a heartbeat later, deeper and heavier than it should have been. He turned his head toward the edge of the quarry. The light in the hollow brightened, stretching toward him, threads of it weaving up through the cracks in the ground. The air flickered with faint particles, not dust, not ash, but something that shimmered only when it moved. The goat watched, unmoving. The light climbed the tower, slow as water rising through dry wood. It reached the top, then paused. The wind returned, just a whisper, carrying with it a faint tone, almost a song. The tower shuddered once more, then stilled. The echo rose again, not from below this time, but from around. The sound was everywhere at once, bouncing from the stone, from the cliffs, from the sky. But none of it matched the present. Every sound was behind itself. Every note came a moment late. The world was caught in its own delay. The goat stood in the middle of it, listening as his own breath arrived after he took it. The faint crunch of gravel beneath his hooves lingered, played again by the quarry's deep throat. It wasn't an echo anymore. It was repetition, the world replaying itself one step behind. He turned back toward the hollow. The blue light had faded, replaced by something else, a pale silver shimmer, colder, quieter. The cracks in the stone were closing again, slow and deliberate, sealing whatever had stirred beneath. But before they did, one final sound rose from the depths. A single note, drawn thin by distance. It wasn't his sound. It wasn't an echo. It was a reply. And though the goat couldn't name it, he knew what it meant. The quarry wasn't empty. It was listening. He turned his gaze toward the horizon, where the land dipped toward the valley. The faint shimmer that had touched the village and river far below was there again, spreading outward, following the line of the earth itself. The sound followed it, delayed but determined, moving through stone, soil, and time. The goat stepped onto the edge of the ledge. The air below him vibrated, soft and late, but it came. Always late, but it came. He looked back once more at the tower, at the cracks in the stone that no longer glowed. The silence there wasn't empty now. It was expectant. Then he climbed higher, toward the rim, toward the last of the light, each step sending a sound into the deep, and each sound returning, faint and faithful, half a heartbeat too slow. The mountain was answering itself again. The morning came quietly as if it had been waiting its turn. Mist rolled through the quarry, soft and silver, gathering in the hollows between the ledges. The light above was pale and cold, a kind of daylight that didn't quite belong to the sun. The goat stood on the rim of the quarry, where the land leveled out before giving way to the long slope of broken stone and rusted rails. From here he could see everything, the pit yawning below, the collapsed tower leaning like a relic of breath, and beyond it all, the horizon still trembling with fog. But something was different. The sound had changed. All through the night, the echoes had followed him, slow, faithful, half a heartbeat behind each step. But now, as the first light touched the stone, he heard it ahead of him. A single strike, a distant hoof on rock. His sound, but not his doing. The goat froze. The air was still, yet the quarry spoke again. A hollow thud rolling across the ledges, soft and perfect, just one breath too soon. The echo had moved forward in time. He stepped once. The sound came again, this time not from behind but from the next ridge, faint and early, as if the world had decided to remember him before he arrived. He descended. The rocks were slick with dew, shining like fragments of mirrors. Each hoofstep sang against the stone, and each time the quarry answered before it should have. An echo without cause, a memory running ahead of him. The deeper he went, the louder it became. The ledges thrummed with the delayed heartbeat of the world. Even the silence between the sounds seemed to vibrate with anticipation. At the middle ridge, he stopped. The air was moving differently here. Not wind, not heat, but pressure. It pressed upward, rising from the ground like a slow exhale through unseen lungs. The sound wasn't just echo anymore. It was presence. The goat turned his head toward the pit. At its center, the earth shimmered faintly. A flat plane of stone streaked with cracks, each one faintly glowing with light too weak to be seen clearly, too steady to be chance. He took another step. The echo came again. But this time, it wasn't only his. It carried layers, footsteps heavier than his own, shapes of sounds that didn't belong to hooves at all. The memory of picks striking stone, chains rattling, voices lost to time. The quarry was remembering. The walls flickered faintly, colors shifting between gray and bronze as the sound rolled upward through them. Dust drifted from the cracks, suspended in the still air. He climbed down another ledge. The sound matched him, a few seconds early now. By the time he reached the floor of the quarry, the echoes were everywhere, not behind, not ahead, inside. The stone pulsed softly beneath him, alive with rhythm. Each sound he made was already waiting for him, like a reflection that knew what it was before the light arrived. The goat walked to the center of the pit. The cracks in the ground widened slightly, faint lines of light threading outward beneath his hooves. The air trembled. Then came the echo again. Only this time, it wasn't a repetition at all. It was speech. The sound was shaped, slow, deep, rolling through the rock with deliberate rhythm. It didn't carry words, but it carried meaning. The ground wasn't answering his steps anymore. It was calling them. The goat stood perfectly still. The air thickened, the light between the cracks brightening like veins under skin. He lowered his head, his reflection trembling faintly in the glossy surface of stone, dusted with dew. The earth spoke again, closer now. It wasn't sound in the air, but vibration in his bones. We remember you before you move. The voice was neither kind nor cruel. It was fact, the sound of time acknowledging itself. The goat raised his head. The quarry glowed faintly beneath the fog, the cracks spreading outward like a slow heartbeat of light. Each pulse sent ripples through the stone, gentle, endless, measured. The echo no longer followed him. It led. He took one step. The light ahead shimmered, responding before he could even make the sound. Another step, and another. Each one already answered, the echo now an invitation rather than memory. When he reached the far wall, the light pooled upward, gathering into a pale arc, a curve of stone where the rock had cracked open long ago. Inside the arc, something pulsed once. Dim, silver, distant, like the shimmer of the river miles away, but deeper, older. The air was colder here, but the ground was warm. The hum beneath him rose again, slow, vast, eternal. He pressed his hoof into the light. The sound that came back wasn't late or early this time. It was now. The quarry, the sky, and the goat's heartbeat moved together. The world was no longer waiting for its own echo. It was finally in time. By evening, the quarry was awake. The light had returned to the cracks, no longer shy or scattered. It pulsed with rhythm, deliberate, steady, alive. The air above it shimmered, the mist rippling outward with every pulse, as if sound had become wind and wind had become breath. The goat stood at the center of the basin. The stone beneath his hooves felt warm now, faintly pliant, as though it had forgotten its own hardness. Every movement he made, each step, each breath, was met instantly, echoed not by the walls, but by the earth itself. There was no delay anymore. The world had caught up to itself. He tilted his head. The hum in the air deepened. It came from everywhere at once, the ledges, the cliffs, the mountain above. The sound rolled upward, folding through itself, building layers that resonated through his chest. The mountain was no longer remembering. It was speaking. The cracks beneath him widened again. Light streamed through in ribbons, cutting the air like molten veins. The quarry floor trembled, and from the far edge, the fallen tower gave a slow, sorrowful groan, not from collapse, but from recognition. Its frame straightened slightly, metal joints flexing as though some buried strength had returned. The hum grew louder, richer, spilling outward into the valley beyond. The goat stepped forward. With each step, the ground answered, not in echo, but in harmony. The vibrations rippled ahead of him, calling other voices from the stone. A deep tone from the base of the cliffs, a higher one from the ridges, together forming a slow, breathing chord. The whole quarry had become an instrument of time. He reached the base of the tower again. The cracks there glowed brightest, light running up its sides like water up a root. Dust rose in soft clouds, carrying the scent of iron and rain. Then came a sound unlike the rest, a low, drawn note that shook the air like the memory of thunder. The cliffs quivered. Pebbles rolled down the slopes. And from deep beneath the quarry, something answered. A second tone, lower, older, rose from the bedrock. The two sounds met in the air, folding together until they became one vast vibration that filled the entire space. The air thickened. The mist above the pit began to spiral inward, drawn toward the center, toward the goat. He stood unmoving, surrounded by sound. The vibration passed through him, steady and slow, carrying meaning that wasn't meant for words. It said, "The stone remembers the shape of every sound that ever touched it." The air pulsed once. The walls flickered with light. He lifted his head. The echoes were everywhere now, ahead, behind, within. Each pulse was both past and future, meeting in the present like hands clasping in the dark. Then, suddenly, silence. The sound vanished, cut clean from the air. The mist froze mid-motion. Even the faint trembling of the ground ceased. The goat lowered his head. His reflection stared back at him from the glowing cracks, doubled, blurred, as though two versions of him occupied the same place. And in the stillness, the echo returned, but softer this time, almost tender. Not late, not early. Perfectly aligned. The mountain exhaled. A wave of light rose from the floor of the quarry, spreading across the rock like dawn breaking under the earth. The walls shimmered, every crack illuminated, every fracture stitched together by gold. The tower, bathed in the glow, straightened completely, its metal joints sighing as if in relief. The air thrummed with quiet warmth. Then, in a slow, deliberate motion, the sound returned. One deep tone that stretched across the valley and out into the distance. It wasn't an echo anymore. It was continuance. The goat turned toward the horizon. Far beyond the quarry, the same golden light flickered in the soil of the valley. Beneath the river, beneath the forest, beneath the sleeping towns. The world was trembling with one breath. He took a step forward. The sound beneath him rose to meet it. The stone no longer waited to respond. It moved with him, alive, breathing, remembering not just what had been, but what was. He climbed the last ridge, hooves leaving faint impressions that glowed for a moment, before fading back into stillness. At the rim, he stopped. The quarry below pulsed one final time. A single heartbeat of light that filled the air, lingered, and dissolved into dusk. The silence that followed was not emptiness. It was peace. The goat stood on the edge of the world, the wind curling gently through his fur. Far below, the mountain slept again, not dead, not silent, but listening. And this time, it would remember in real time.